Are you ready to get outside this summer but aren't sure where to go? Is Yellowstone National Park on your bucket list? Today we share why we may skip one of America's most famous parks and what we might do instead. Plus, we give you our insider tips for visiting America's national parks.
Welcome to the Travel More podcast.
Each episode, we share custom itineraries, travel hacks, expert advice, and even stories of our past travel failures to help you level up your travel game.
I'm Shelly, a lover of plans, itineraries, and cheap flights. I'm an expert deal finder with one eye always on the budget.
And I'm Bruce, the improviser, ready to pick up where plans fail to turn letdowns into unexpected trip favorites. We're here to bust through barriers that stop you from making your travel dreams a reality.
So book that flight, buy the tickets, and say hello to your next adventure.
This is the Travel More Podcast. Welcome back to the Travel More Podcast.
Episode number 10.
Big 10, man. I'm so excited to be here since launching in January. And we just want to say thanks to everybody who's been listening so far. We're so glad you've joined us.
Yeah, we are really overwhelmed kind of by the amount of people who have joined us on our journey. So thank you so much if you've been here from the beginning. And if you are new here, welcome. We have so many fun things kind of that all came about this week.
So quickly, even just today. So before we get into the episode, we definitely want to share some updates from Travel More Podcast land.
Yeah, there's a lot. So we've had some top secret meetings that actually have happened today, a couple of back-to-back. We have some very exciting partnerships coming up that will affect you guys more than us. So we are super excited to share those, but we can't share any details yet. But we are very excited what's to come for those. And then our next thing that's coming up is our new series called Summer School. And that is going to be happening here at the Travel More Podcast from June to July this summer.
So this series will consist of bite-sized episodes that we'll be releasing weekly about all of our favorite travel tools.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a nod and a wink to our day jobs over here working in schools. And most of these resources are free, so it's not a summer of selling. It is all the things that have made our lives kind of easier as travelers. So there's going to be some really great stuff there. And if it gets a little more complicated, like it's an app or a website, we are also going to be doing YouTube tutorials where we'll show you kind of step-by-step on how to use each of these tools.
And to celebrate this series, we're doing our second giveaway. We'll be giving away our Summer School prize pack, which includes a download of our Travel Planner Bundle, which are several digital resources that we think come in handy when trying to budget or build itineraries.
Things like credit card hacking spreadsheets, travel planners with budgets, daily itineraries, all these things that can make your life a little easier when it comes to planning your travel.
And on top of that, we're also going to be giving a new book by travel hacking pro Zachary Burr-Abel.
First Class Travel on a Budget. I actually just read this book, and I think it is a phenomenal way to start your travel hacking career. It goes from the very bottom of just the basic lingo all the way up to kind of stacking points and how to get those amazing redemption. So I think it is a great resource, especially if you are looking into getting into the travel hacking lifestyle.
So if you want to be included in the giveaway, make sure you sign up for our newsletter.
And if you're already there, you're already eligible.
Otherwise, check out our show notes for a link to sign up.
So let's talk about today's episode. We have a couple of things. I want to tell you all the things so you know exactly what you're in for today. We're going to be talking about one of America's favorite parks, not so much one of our favorite parks, and that is Yellowstone. Then we're going to talk about where we would go instead of Yellowstone. And then finally, at the very end, we give you our very favorite tips for visiting all of America's national parks. We got some really good ones in there, so make sure you stay tuned to the end.
All right, so now on to today's topic, which, Shelly and I, we're teachers. We work in schools. So
Hence the summer school.
Hence summer school. But we're also very excited the school year is coming to an end. And it's got us thinking about summer vacation and some of our favorite trips and things we like to do at this time of year.
And absolutely one of our very favorite trips of all time was our road trip kind of across the United States, which we did mention a couple of episodes ago. So if you didn't check that one out, that one has our full itinerary.
The classic American road trip.
Of course. But to zoom in on one part that I think is on a lot of people's bucket list is Yellowstone. So we have a little bit of a hot take on Yellowstone, and it's not necessarily our favorite.
Yeah, I think I'm always a little nervous to even say it because
don't come for us.
Well, I gotta say, okay, we're thinking about summer, we're thinking about camping, we're thinking about road trips, and obviously we got to talk about Yellowstone because it's like the poster child for the national parks.
Yeah.
You know, it's probably one of the most popular, if not, I think the most visited national park, in a year.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think I might skip it.
Ooh.
No, okay, that's a little misleading. I don't know that we would totally skip Yellowstone.
If we had never been.
Yeah. For sure. But I will say, with a park like... we don't give away our secret yet. We wouldn't base ourselves there for a major trip. So a lot of people would say, like, oh, I'm going to go spend a week at Yellowstone. We wouldn't do that, even from our first trip. That's kind of what we're saying right now, because Yellowstone does have a lot of great pieces to it. You know, there's the biggest one, I think, is probably wildlife and the geothermal activity. When we went, we saw a lot of wildlife. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we saw like almost all of the major animals in Yellowstone we were just there like a couple days too.
Yeah, the only one I think that we missed was we didn't see a moose in Yellowstone, I don't think.
No moose. But
I think that was it.
It was the only place we saw a grizzly bear.
Yeah, we saw a grizzly bear. We saw black bears, tons of elk, tons of bison, which we have a funny saying about later. And then wolves.
Yeah, don't forget the wolf.
Of course, I have a wolf story. And that is, we got up really early, because we're about to talk about this in a minute, but Yellowstone is ginormous. So we wanted to kind of drive Yellowstone in a day, and so we got up at about 5 a.m., I think, and we were packing up our campsite, and Bruce went to the bathroom, and I was like putting food in the car. So all the the doors and stuff are all open, and I'm literally transporting food, and between me and the picnic table in the car was a wolf. I mean, they could not have been more than 3 or 4 feet from me, and I just like completely froze. And
did you try to call me? I think
yes,
but there's like no service.
Because I literally like I jumped into the back of the car and immediately tried to like close all the windows or close all the doors, because I was worried it was gonna jump in with me because I had all this food. Yeah. And then I was like frantically calling Bruce. It wasn't going through. It was kind of a mess. The wolf was scared off the second I closed the door. Like, he was gone. But I didn't know that because I was just closing doors and kind of freaking out. And then Bruce just comes like waltzing back like nothing happened because he had no idea. He's like, why are you like in the car?
Yeah, I think you were in it. I was like, what are we doing?
Yeah, he's like, all the doors are closed. Like, there's still stuff on the table. Like, what's happening? And I was like, and of course I told him the story. But we saw other wolves besides the one in the campground.
That's actually a really fun story you've got. So the Lamar Valley is a big place to see the wildlife.
Yeah.
And that's when we saw like the red wolf, was it?
Well, we saw like wolf packs in Lamar, but they were pretty far away. There's our first tip of the day: is if you are going to one of these places for wildlife, bring binoculars.
Yeah, you definitely want binoculars. You know, we hadn't done a lot of these kind of trips at this time. It was like one of our first, like, a lot of wildlife.
Yeah.
And I guess we just didn't buy binoculars, but there were so many people there that had, like, big lenses.
They're very nice and let us use some of them. So but, cool. Yeah, binoculars are a must. That was very cool. The wildlife in Yellowstone is one of the best pieces, in my opinion. Of course, the other part of why people go to Yellowstone is the geothermal pools.
Yeah, so you've got some of the classics, right? You've got Old Faithful. There's the Grand Prismatic Spring. There's Mammoth Hot Springs. There's
a lot of them.
There's so many. I mean, these are big poster ones, you know?
Yeah, and those are cool. But Bruce and I have a tendency to go to really cool things like Niagara Falls or Grand Prismatic Springs and kind of get there, see it, and kind of go, wow, okay.
There it is.
And then we kind of just go. So if you're a person who likes to just like soak in the beauty and really just like take it in, maybe Yellowstone is for you. For us, it was kind of like we were checking off boxes, being like, okay, we saw it. Okay, we saw it. Okay, we saw it. And that's kind of what it felt like. And now I think we could start to talk about, like, we just talked about amazing things about it. So why wouldn't we go back? You know?
You know, and I think, like Shelley was saying, these are once in a lifetime kind of things to see.
Yeah.
But then when you see them, I guess, you know, you're done. And I think it's also the process that, you know, to go see them, there's a lot of driving. There's a lot of people. And it kind of feels like you're in a queue and just you get to the site, you see it, and then there's like almost exiting through the gift shop. It feels very like a museum of nature. nature.
Yeah, like an outdoor museum.
Yeah.
Because when he says a lot of driving, I mean that we drove over 7 hours in one day.
Yeah, because Yellowstone's huge.
Yeah, like it is ginormous.
So if you want to get to see all these things, you're going to drive.
Yeah, I mean, a full day of driving too, not just like a couple hours. We drove more than we drove in Iceland, I think.
Oh, for sure.
It was just a lot of driving. And, you do kind of feel like you're in a queue in the car. So, like, we mentioned the buffalo a minute ago, or bison. And one of our, like, kind of catchphrases, I guess. We do this really weird thing where we come up with, like, catchphrases / inside joke phrases for the trip. And then we continue to say them over and over again. So, our one for Yellowstone was like, not another buffalo.
Yeah.
Because we just kept getting in this super long lines of cars. And we'd be like, oh, it must be wildlife.
Yeah.
And we're like, if this is another buffalo.
Well, because, it started like the first time you see these, the buffalo, the bison, whatever.
It's exciting.
It's super exciting.
Yeah.
But then you realize that there's a lot of them. Yeah. And you start
They're like
wondering,
around every curve.
and every time you see people out of their car, standing on their cars with their big cameras, and you're like, oh man, this has got to be it's got to be the grizzly, or it's got to be some like a moose, something else that's not as common to see. And nope, it's just another buffalo.
Yeah. So, there's some of that. And then the other thing is the campgrounds. We had been camping in more primitive sites up to this point. So we did have like a little bit of a bias, I guess, coming in. We just felt like very outdoorsy on this trip. We were in places that were off the beaten path a good amount.
Like way fewer amounts of people.
Yeah, and then we get to Yellowstone, and it just kind of felt like camping at Disney World almost. Like it was very close together. Very close. Like your tent almost didn't fit in your lot or whatever. It just felt like you're on top of people. People, don't necessarily camp a ton that were there camping, so they don't know camp etiquette or even like hotel etiquette, where it was like, there's quiet hours, and the people kind of respect quiet hours most of the time. And campgrounds. I just remember
the amount of car alarms that went off from the parking lot.
That was wild. I have never experienced that kind of thing in my life. I swear like 5 to 7 car alarms went off. Like in my whole life, I've never had so many car alarms.
But I think it just shows you like there are so many people there.
Yeah.
And I actually think I have another theory as to why so many car alarms went off. A lot of people who go to Yellowstone are renting a car renting like the
RVs.
The RVs that say like go across America. They have the classic one that everybody gets. Yeah. So I'm wondering if they just forget like what are they
that's
driving?
actually pretty good.
Where was it? And they just sent, you know what I mean?
That's a good theory, or even just accidentally, like they're just not used to it. Yeah.
So, but that's you do get a ton of people, and with that comes like people who are not necessarily camping and they go here to have an experience. Yeah. So it definitely has
our next door neighbor people kept us up till like 1 a.m. Drinking and partying, and I get it. Like you're just like hanging out, but like we were trying to go to Lamar Valley at 5 a.m. So we were like not super happy campers. And then we thought they were in our campsite because we could hear footsteps outside of our thing. It was not the people. Speaking of wildlife, it was a herd of elk, which then stampeded through our campsite, which was terrifying. Thankfully, we had a huge tent. Like it's very tall. Yes. So we felt a little more safe, but I would be like legitimately scared in a soft shell tent. Small. Yeah. Like actually kind of nervous. So keep that in mind as well. So if we wouldn't go to Yellowstone, where would we go instead?
Well, that's an easy one.
Yeah.
The Grand Tetons.
Yeah.
Which are really close, actually. Yeah. Probably like an hour away from Yellowstone.
Yeah. Totally an easy place to have your home base kind of set up there and still be able to very easily visit Yellowstone.
And, I think what I love about Grand Tetons, and probably the biggest difference, is if Yellowstone was like a drive-through attraction where you get to see a lot of cool stuff, the Tetons feels way more immersive and activity-based.
Well, to me, it's like what you think of when you think national park. So it's like there's hiking, there's rock climbing, there's kayaking.
There's rafting on the Snake River.
Rafting. So there's just like all of these kind of outdoorsy adventure things. And not to say that some of those don't exist in Yellowstone, but they aren't super evident. Like, you can go hiking in Yellowstone, obviously, but it's a little more like backcountry. Like you have to register and, it's kind of more of a thing. Or you're walking on boardwalks, which is like not really hiking.
Right, you're walking on boardwalks and they've got like gift shops and like restaurants by the attraction.
It's a little weird because Yellowstone feels like I'm either doing zero outdoorsy things, or I'm like in it outdoorsy. And Grand Tetons feels a little bit like where we like to live, which is there is, amenities that we can use, but we can also like go kayaking and really get into like a 12-mile hike. That we aren't having to get backcountry permits for.
And I do think that the Tetons, while it's still extremely popular, it's not nearly as visited as Yellowstone.
Right. It is popular, but I agree. Yeah. And you don't feel that kind of overcrowding, especially on the roadways.
Yes.
That was the big one for Yellowstone, is just how crowded the streets were. And you definitely did not feel that in the Tetons.
Yeah, and even like the hike we did, which was probably one of my favorite hikes we've ever done.
Yeah, it's definitely in the top 5.
Well, yeah, let me put it to you this way. So you've got Jenny Lake at Grand Teton, which is one of the major lakes.
Yeah.
And, there's a ferry you can take to kind of cross and do a very easy hike, which is nice because it's still super accessible. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of people on this trail, but man, it did not feel like it was overpacked. And we went at a very popular time of year. So,
yeah. And, well, let's rewind. It may not be the easiest hike. So we did not take the ferry. We just hiked around around the lake.
Yeah.
That was easy because it's like 2 miles flat because you're at a lake. So you're literally just hiking around the edge. But one of the most like popular parts of that is called Inspiration Point. And that, it's about 1.6, 1.7 miles and a little over 500 feet of elevation. So it gets a little staircase-y.
Yeah, there's a chunk of it that's like a staircase. You're walking up.
But everybody was doing it. Young, old, like little kids. Like, people take their time and they can it's not this crazy hike. And the nice thing about the Tetons hike is that it's an in and out trail. So you kind of like go as far as you want to go, and then when you're tired, you turn around and go back.
Yeah, and I really like it because you can anybody can access it. Right?
Yeah.
So you can get a really awesome view, and you have this magnificent range and the view of the lake. Or you can keep going, and we went for 12 miles, I want to say, in and out.
Yeah, so like maybe 6 in, 6 out, something like that, I think.
And we actually got to hike with real bears.
With not grizzly bears.
Not grizzly bears.
We wouldn't have done
God.
that.
If it was grizzly bears, I would have left and went back to the car. Oh my gosh.
Black bears. They were across like a stream, but it was very cool. And that's actually the Grand Tetons is where we saw our moose.
Moose, yeah.
So kind of like completed our trifecta of what we wanted to see in Yellowstone and the Tetons. So it was a great time. We saw like a handful of them too. It wasn't just one.
The moose
3 or
the
4.
bear. We saw multiple bears too.
Yeah, I think there were 3 bears hiking with us, and one was like blonde.
Yeah, that's right. I remember somebody told us, we met this like trail wizard.
Yes.
This man, he had.
You love when you meet a good trail wizard.
Dude, he had like full camo gear, awesome cameras, and a hat that had a pin from like every national park in the country.
Yeah, and he was probably like in his 70s.
Yeah, but he talked to us because I guess has had a lot of experience with wildlife, and I know. I'll speak for myself. Shelly was probably braver than me. Shelly's like, we're gonna go on this hike, and it's through a huckleberry bush patch where the bears like to come down and eat. And I was like, wait a second, we're walking right through their eating grounds.
Bruce was extremely concerned.
Listen, I
with
had a
being
knife and my
attacked
bear
by
mace
a
on me.
grizzly bear.
I was ready.
Like, it was hours of our conversation and our road trip. I had to look up all the facts, all the statistics.
Listen, knowledge is power.
To convince him we would not be attacked by grizzly bears. But you're right. We did have all of our precautions as well. Our bear mace.
Hey, to be fair, I feel a lot more comfortable now. But hey, we've hiked with bears. We've swam with sharks.
We've got a couple
This
cool
is why
stuff.
you gotta travel, man.
We gorilla tracked.
We gorilla
What are you talking? You were like leaving the best one out.
The gorillas are peaceful. They're more like humans.
Well, the chimpanzees weren't.
No,
so.
they were a little scary. But anyway, back on track. So Grand Tetons, as you can see, there's so much. It's so awesome. I love them, and of course, Yellowstone is also great as well.
It's just not somewhere I would base a trip, and I think we think it's maybe a little more than slightly overhyped, which a lot of destinations are.
Yeah.
Our favorite trips, like by far, have been like kind of off the beaten path destinations.
Yeah, lesser known towns, or like especially on this trip when we went out west and we camped, some of the state campgrounds that are hard to find, or maybe they're just not as like advertised.
Yeah, they're not as advertised because they're like a local hidden gem, and they were incredible.
Oh yeah, and you get away from the big crowds. So that's kind of the lesson here is look beyond what's advertised.
Exactly. Like, you want to go somewhere, look what's on the outskirts of that place, because that actually might be a better home base.
So if you're thinking of visiting a national park this summer, going camping, here's some tips that we've got for you.
Yeah, so after COVID, parks started requiring reservations, and some of them have kept that up. So just make sure that if you're going to go to a national park, that it doesn't have reservations, or that you make a reservation and don't end up like us, sad outside the entrance to the Rocky Mountains National
That was
Park.
a sad, sad day.
Yeah.
I think we drove all the way up right to the entrance, and it was like you have to have a timed entry.
Yeah.
That was one of the only ones we went to that was like that.
It was the only one, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
But that's when they first started putting them in.
That's true.
It was 2020.
It's definitely, I mean, it's state by state. So
yeah. So they do still exist though. So do make sure that, you look and see if they require it and you make it ahead of time.
So another tip, you definitely want to download park maps, like from Google Maps, before you lose internet access or cell service. So most of the time when you go to these parks, you might get some service, you might get Wi-Fi at a lodge, but I would not trust it. So try to get that ahead of time.
And this is a brand new feature Google Maps just put out in April. So it's very cool. You can do all the maps without having to stop kind of at the visitor center first.
So another favorite app of ours is called All Trails.
Mm-hmm. We use that all the time.
Yeah, we use it. I mean, it's awesome.
It's free.
It's free, and it's got like everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you are. Like in Connecticut, I pull it up, and it probably has every walking, hiking trail.
Yep, and it's very good about telling you kind of a difficulty level, and we've found them pretty spot on when we've.
I'd say they're pretty good. So like you get an idea of easy, moderate, strenuous.
Yeah.
And they also group things by like best views or what people have reviewed it on.
Yeah, and you can read reviews. So it's like if you're going in October and you want to see if it's muddy, you can kind of find some reviews from October. So it's a cool app. And it's free, so ideal.
So that one's really great. And it's helpful for navigation too.
And Bruce's number one tip is if you're going to hike in bear country, be bear aware. Right, Bruce?
Be bear aware.
Do read all warning signs and follow them, especially with animals. People get hurt every year in these parks because of animals, because they're just not following the rules.
Yeah, well, that's actually... So another thing about Yellowstone that is very common is people getting hurt from the buffalo, the bison, whatever.
You think
I'm going to keep calling them buffalo. I know they're bison, but...
You think, because of the bears. But no, it's literally... The bison. Like,
yeah, well...
They horn people every year.
People think you can go up and they're soft, and let's go get close to these massive animals that could probably rip your car in half. And it's just...
it's not good.
You got to respect the wildlife.
Yep.
And I think the scariest aspect of this warning, when we were in Glacier National Park, and I think the sign said, do not hike in less than parties of 3.
And we are a party of 2.
And it was just a day. Glacier had just opened up, and there were not a lot of people there.
There were not a lot of people.
We were hiking, and it was eerie and silent, and no one was around.
Silent. So one of the things you do with bears is that you like make noise as you are hiking. So we were singing what we thought was the Tom Bombadil song in the Lord of the Rings series. You're hearing all of our inside tips. So sing Tom Bombadil and make up catchphrases. That's our tips for this. That's how you keep
the bears away.
Yeah. And then the very best tip that we're going to give you for this entire episode is if you are planning an epic road trip, national park kind of thing, or even if you're just going for 2 days in a row, it's probably still worth it. You got to get an America the Beautiful pass. It's $80, I think, for the year. It covers your entire car. So it is a great thing to have, and it covers all the national parks. We used it a ton. We went to the Everglades, Tetons, Yellowstone,
Cape Cod National Seashore,
Glacier National Park,
sand dunes,
Crater of the Moon. I mean, tons and tons and tons. So if you're gonna do any kind of like road tripping in national parks or in that road trip, you got to get that pass. They also have kind of discounts or even free versions of it if you are a senior or if you are on permanent disability, if you're a veteran or family of a veteran, and if you're in 4th grade. That's a random one, but they have this like thing for 4th graders that you get a free pass.
That's fun.
It is fun. So if you got a 4th grader home, they are your ticket.
Speaking of summer school.
Yeah, they are your ticket to free national parks.
Yeah, totally worth it because just the price alone to get into either the Tetons or Yellowstone is $35 a car. So if you're going to be going to like more than one park, $80 is worth it.
Absolutely.
So we hope you enjoy today's episode. And American national parks are some of our favorite places to explore, and I think it should be on every traveler's bucket list.
If you have a favorite park and we missed it, you got to tell us over our Instagram at The Travel Moors. We have all kinds of things there, and it's kind of fun to be part of our community. If you're a lover of this podcast, please do us a 1-minute favor and leave a quick review. We will be so thankful, and it helps us bring more of this awesome stuff to you guys.
And remember, we're doing a giveaway to celebrate our summer podcast series, and we're so excited for this. So everyone who's on our email list will be eligible for the giveaway. So if you haven't done that yet, definitely join now so you can be entered to win. Check out the link in the show notes.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Did you know that every time you book a Disney or Universal vacation, you're paying for a service that you may not even be using?
Really?
That's right. Travel agent costs are added to your Disney or Universal vacation, whether you use one or not.
So you're telling me that I'm paying for something even though I'm not getting the help?
You got it. So next time you want to book a theme park vacation, make your money work for you. By booking with Magic Pass Travel, you'll get our expertise and years of experience without paying any extra and while supporting a small business.
Check out our show notes to find our contact information.
Can't wait to help you plan your next adventure.